I know where I'm going. Silly things people say, but don't mean. Who hasn't heard the old joke, men don't ask for directions, right? Or who is not old enough to remember MapQuest when they'd be like, oh, take Smith Road 1 mile and turn east, right? And everybody hated those directions. Coincidentally enough, though, there is actually numerous studies that show that men who ask for directions actually appreciate those type of directions, called survey perspective, right? Take the road east, as opposed to women actually respond better to route perspectives, which would be like landmarks. Take a right at the statue. So what is sense of direction? So let's set the scene. You wake suddenly to your body signaling it's potty time, right? It's the darkest hour and you stumble around, feeling your way down the hall, and inevitably you stub your toe on a dresser or you run into the door jamb with your shoulder, right? But cue a sliver of light coming out from underneath your roommate's door because they're up studying late, of course. And miraculously, you can navigate to and from the Porcelain King without any incident, right? So in many animals, humans included, an accurate sense of direction is generated with the help of brain cells known as head direction neurons, which do so by incorporating two main streams of information: visual landmarks and positional estimates based on your self-movement. So a similar process in fruit flies occurs using their compass neurons or EPG neurons. They're arranged in a ring-like structure, kind of like the dial of a compass. And as they move around, the corresponding neural activity moves around the ring like a needle on a compass. So these neurons build a spatial map of the world within their brain, which is known as a cognitive map. Cognitive map encodes spatial information and allows navigational planning. So the hippocampus is a key structure containing cells that are responsible for constructing the cognitive map in the mammalian brain. So the hippocampus is a complex but very vulnerable structure that's embedded in your temporal lobe, which is deep inside your skull and brain. It plays a major role in learning, memory, and the hippocampal neurons, which are known as place cells, become electrically active when an animal travels to specific locations within its environment. So the hippocampal astrocytes respond to the spatial location with elevations in their intracellular calcium ion signals. In one study, there were people that had looked at photos and videos of their past day activity, and the patterns of their front left portion of their hippocampus reflected both temporal and spatial proximities. So remarkably, we also have been shown to have grid-like codes in our entorhinal cortex. The entorhinal cortex is a part of your hippocampus structure that moves information to and from the hippocampi proper. So in rodents, the preferred heading direction of cells tend to be aligned with the orientation of this grid. And so because all of the conjunctive grid cells tend to be aligned with each other, average neural response tends to be greater for movements that align within that grid rather than that are misaligned. So essentially your brain is giving you like a heck yes signal when you're moving in the right direction. And this isn't just for humans, right? Animals have a very special innate sense of direction, and we see that through their migration. So the hippocampal formation of mammals and birds mediates spatial orientation behaviors with map-like representations. So this shows that this and with its location show that at least one function of the ancestral medial pallium, which is the ancient hippocampus, so to speak, was spatial navigation. And recent studies have actually shown that goldfish and reptiles have the medial pallium, which is the amphibious hippocampus, also play a role in their spatial orientation. Pigeons, interestingly, have both a compass and information organized in a map-like way known as their map and compass concept. And so the olfactory system actually plays a role in this. So odorant molecules come into the nasal passage and bump up against the primary cilia of the olfactory sensory neurons, and they send signals to the brain, you're going in the right direction. And rodents have multiple maps, which can represent either multiple environments or where the set of place cells that fire in one place is different from the place cells that fire in another, or multiple states of the same environment where the same place cells fire, but the location and maximal firing rates change within that. So can you get better at this, right? The hippocampus definitely is a culprit here. London taxi drivers who spent years learning the streets of London have shown to have larger hippocampi on the right rear side as a result of their training. So the size of your hippocampus may predict your ability to acquire a cognitive map. But conversely, the relationship between already having a sense of direction and cognitive mapping is important to be able to build upon it. So people with a poor sense of direction have difficulty with learning the environment, specifically acquiring accurate knowledge of the configurations of traveled routes and judging spatial relationships between places on the routes accurately and flexibly. So if you're bad with directions and don't have a good sense of direction, don't delete Google Maps, don't delete Apple Maps, and don't be afraid to ask for directions.